Yes.
Did everybody get their grades done ahead of time? I'm usually the day.
Everybody was starting.
Oops, sorry.
Hi, folks joining on Zoom. My apologies, we had a technical issue. Appreciate your patience. It's always something. Especially when I'm leading the meeting, it's always something. So we are just letting folks log in. So just give us a moment to do that. Try not to trip over this chair. Hi, Kim. And Margaret, if you could kind of keep track of how many senators we have around.
She's always here.
Ooh,
Kim.
she's online.
Oh, she has a cold.
I can complain about my terrible cold.
Oh, sorry. I miss you.
Thank
All
you.
right, everybody, we have a quorum, so I'm gonna call this meeting of the Academic Senate to order. At 3:08, my apologies again for being late. We briefly lost our internet, but we are back and we're happy to see you all in Zoom land. And I'm happy to see you all here in the room. So welcome. Clearly, I am not Melanie. Unless she dyed her hair and dyed her eyes. So I am gonna go ahead and fill in for Melanie. She is sitting on a committee today and cannot be with us, but she sends her best regards. So she and I will officially call this meeting to order. I think we can go ahead and approve the agenda by acclamation unless anyone has any objection to that. Seeing and hearing none, we can go ahead and approve the agenda. So thank you again, once and all. As always, you see our community values are listed on our Senate agenda, and they are critical for us in each and every meeting, particularly those values that pertain to our commitment to our students here at this college. And today I would always like to remind us to have an equity mindset, particularly if we're going to talk about things involving curriculum. So I really want you to have an equity mindset today and to be willing, as always, to have real honest communication and dialogue with one another, even when they get awkward, because that's how we get more fruitful, productive conversation. So thank you all for that. At this time, Kim, I see your hand raised.
Just a request. I know how hard it is to run hybrid meetings, but Margarita, could you try to move the camera so I can see the whole side of the table? I can't see.
Oh, yeah.
Kim.
I know, what a pain, huh?
That's okay.
I wasn't gonna bring it up.
For those of you on Zoom, I made a bad joke about not being disappointed that I was not in camera view. All right, and are we good now? Okay, she has a heart, so I appreciate that. All right, my friends, at this moment in time, we have reached that moment in the agenda where I will call for any and all public comment. So if you are on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand. If you're here in the room, please raise your actual hand. Seeing and hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to item number 4 on our agenda, and that is the approval of the minutes. And I laugh because many of you know we've been working on making corrections to this set of meeting minutes from October 12th. So hopefully the 3rd or 300th time is the charm. But at this moment, I will ask if there are any corrections, revisions, additions that need to be added to these meeting minutes from October 12th of last year. All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any additions or revisions. So at this moment in time, I would love to entertain a motion, knocking on wood, to approve these meeting minutes from October 12th.
I moved to accept them.
Joy Moose, can I please have a second?
A second.
Was that Ben?
Yes.
Thank you, Ben. All right, so we will go ahead and take a roll call vote. So my friends on Zoom, get ready for that mute button. You know you're gonna lose it. You know you can never find it when you're put on the spot. I certainly cannot. All right, we will start with myself, and as I do. Kim,
Yes.
thank you. Ben,
Yes.
yeah, I told you, it took a minute, right? Sabrina, thank you. Ellen,
Yes.
thank you, Ellen. Christopher,
Yes.
thank you. Joy,
Yes.
Edie here.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, your camera's on too. Hi. Elizabeth, are you here? Wow.
Yes.
Oh, you were there. Okay. I got fooled. Kathy. Yes. Juan,
Yes.
Stephanie. Yes. Thank you. Is Ruth here? I'm like squinting with my eyesight is poor. I don't see Ruth. I don't think she's here yet. Russell.
Yes.
Thank you. Anna.
Yes.
Thank you. And Trisha.
Yes.
Thank you, Trisha. Are you on wake? Are you at wake?
Oh, yes. Yes, I am. I may have to step out for a little bit to drive back home. I didn't mean to be here this late. So it only takes me like 5 minutes. So
Okay, we
if you-
appreciate that.
okay,
heads up,
thanks.
Trisha. All right, so that was a unanimous approval by the senators who were here. So we will make note that those meeting minutes have been accepted. And they will be posted to our Senate website for any and all to review them from here on out. All right, so as I am calling this meeting further to order, I want to just remind us of one bit of information, actually a couple bits of information that I have to share with you. One is, and we are, by the way, on item 5 of the agenda if you're following along. And the first item there is the announcement for registration has opened for the ASCCC Spring Plenary. And I have been told that there are some funds available if senators are interested. The dates for the Spring Plenary are April 20th through the 23rd. There is the option to attend in person, and that would be Anaheim. I suppose you could go to Disneyland
Yes.
afterwards.
Very fun.
Right? Or you can attend virtually. So the in-person registration is gonna come upon us sooner rather than later. It is April 12th. You register online. For the virtual registration, they give us a few extra days. It's April 17th. However, if you are attending in person and you would like to stay at the hotel that is a bit where the conference is being held, the cutoff date for that is soon. It's March 20th. Right? So if you are interested and if you're curious about funding for it, please reach out to Melanie or myself and we can share with you how to get you signed up. And I would say at this point, anyone who is interested in attending in either modality is very welcome to do so. And I will always give a plug for the ASCCC. It's usually a very worthwhile endeavor. I checked the website the other day and I haven't seen the program yet, so I don't think that is up. But when it is, we'll probably pester you with an email just to encourage you to attend. Kathy.
Just one quick comment.
Mhm.
If anyone's planning on going in person, make sure you make your hotel reservations now. Because they close early and they don't have a lot of spots, so make a decision soon.
Thank you, Kathy, for the reminder to register early for the hotel, because even though the cutoff date is March 20th, it probably will fill before then. Particularly because it's a popular place. Anaheim is a popular place, unlike some of the meeting locations of the ASCCC, which are less popular and enticing, but who could resist Disneyland? All right, any clarifying questions about the ASCCC? Everybody good? All right, so that will go ahead and bring us to item 6, which are our reports. And at this moment in time, I will always remind folks that attached to the agenda are the liaison reports. I will also ask if any liaison would like to provide an oral report, any pressing issues that you would like to highlight from either your written report or just simply didn't make it in time for the written report.
Nothing. Nothing at the time. I think it's summarized on there.
All right, so I'm not seeing or hearing any, but please, as always, read the reports. This brings us to the president's report, and I will just highlight a few items here that Melanie has typed up for you all. The first item is actually not included in her report because we just got word of it today, but it's an exciting announcement, I think. And this exciting announcement is that the ASD is holding an Olympics. And they're holding an Olympics on Saturday, March 4th from 1 to 6 p.m. in the La Playa Stadium. And they are seeking 10 willing faculty, staff, administrators for a tug of war challenge against the students. Don't everybody sign up at once, because I think we all know who's going to win that tug of war. But if you are interested in being part of the team, I don't know what we're going to call them, team old folks. Please reach out to either Melanie, myself, or Cornelia. Cornelia is also actively involved with the ASG. To put a team together. And if we get a lot of really interested people, maybe we could have multiple matches of said tug of war. So again, that is March 4th from 1 to 6. And we will be emailing you all a flyer that was put together by the ASCCC, which includes a very athletic student athlete on it and is incredibly intimidating. Just to put that out there for you.
Which is not very encouraging.
Well, this guy is very athletic. Trees like a tree trunk.
Are you sending that campus wide?
Yes, campus-wide emails advertising said Olympics will be December. Another item from the president's report that I would like to bring to our attention is that, and this is actually, I think, really exciting news, is that the AP on academic probation is being reworked and reconsidered, particularly to make the wording student-centered rather than criminalizing. And I think this in part really stands to the excellent work that our very own Ana Garcia did with academic renewal. I think you lit a fire, Ana. So I'm very happy to say that fairly soon in the upcoming Senate meetings, we will be hearing from folks on what that will look like. So I am very encouraged and excited by that. One last item that I do just want to bring to our attention, and that is that our next academic Senate meeting, which I believe is March something or other. March 8th, thank you. I'm terrible with dates, which is ironic because I'm an archaeologist. Just recent dates. Yeah, the Viking Age dates, I got them. Recent dates, no. So at our March 8th meeting, the emergency waiver on the Brown Act that suspended the need, the ability for us to be fully 100% online is disappearing, which is encouraging, but I know it's a transition for a lot of us as well. So for our voting members, those are our senators, you are required to attend the meeting in person, which will be located in the room I am currently occupying. So this is BC 214, which is the meeting room. There are, however, new provisos within the Brown Act that do allow a senator, in our case, to zoom in once in the term for any just cause reason, and that could include things such as childcare or a dental appointment, and you're too swollen to come in, those kinds of things, or any emergency situation that you find yourself in. I would, however, stress that if you're in an emergency situation, I think just tend to yourself, really, honestly, and you are allowed to, be absent once from a Senate meeting. Or you can send in a proxy vote, or you can send in a substitute. Take good care of yourselves. That would be my advice. So for our senators, we hope to see you all back here in person, in the room, in the physical space on March 8th. We hope you don't have a just cause reason, but if you do, then at that meeting, please do let Melanie or myself or Kim or just somebody know that you're going to be needing to Zoom in so that we can be prepared for it. However, also included in these new revisions to the Brown Act is a commitment that we will do our very best to uphold, and that is to make a virtual option available for resource members who attend the Senate meeting, so folks who don't vote, as well as any members of our college community, as well as our Santa Barbara community. It's a far more equitable way for folks to attend our meetings. Likewise, if you've been invited to the Senate as a guest speaker, as we have a couple of guest speakers today, you likewise can choose to either Zoom in or room in, as the case may be. So at this time, I will ask if there are any clarifying questions about any of that information that I just shared with you. Yes, Kathy.
Are we ever going to discuss the AP and the BP that was in President's report, the freedom from tuberculosis and resignations or retirements
Yes,
here?
yes, we will have that on a future agenda, but Melanie wanted to be here for those things.
Okay, and did we send those to AP?
That I don't know offhand, but I can find out.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions? My eyesight is a little poor, so forgive me on Zoom land if I don't see hands being raised. I don't see anything. I think we're okay. All right, folks, so that takes us through the reports and on to our presentations today. And we have a couple of presentations today, 3, in fact. One from myself, one from Laura, who's here to represent us alone, everybody's favorite topic. Yay. And Ellen O'Connor is likewise here to share with us some of the research that the AP committee has done on academic freedom. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off on our what I'm going to call presentation parade. Don't worry, Margarita, I can handle this. But you won't be able to see me, but you will be able to hear me. And my apologies, my voice is a little hoarse today. So in Zoom land, please let me know if you are having a hard time hearing me. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and share this. My apologies for the delay, some of the stuff that I had opened beforehand. Had to be. Okay.
That one is.
Folks in Newland, are you seeing a line? Thumbs up? Okay. So we can. All right, so folks, I'm gonna just admit, I need to move the computer because I am fatigued. I can't see over the podium. Don't laugh, it's a challenge sometimes. So I am actually here today to put on another hat, and that is my hat as the chair of our curriculum advisory committee, also lovingly known as CAC. I am accompanied here today by my partner, Aileen Thomas is here as well, and I'm very appreciative. I'm not sure if Felicia Meyer made it here, if she's back with dental work, but All of this work cannot be done without them, so always massive amounts of respect and appreciation. And thank you also for being here to support us. We appreciate that. And young Henry.
Tara, is it easy for Margarita to move the microphone closer to you? I'm sorry, my
Yeah.
is not what it
No,
was.
I appreciate it because my throat is a little sore. Is that better, Kim?
That is so awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. I appreciate it. It would be terrible for you not to hear this exciting presentation, I say with a chuckle. All right, so folks, what I'm here to introduce to you all today is that we at the curriculum committee, in our efforts, college-wide efforts to support diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, are known by its acronym DEIA, also sometimes referred to as IDEA, also sometimes referred to as just DEI. There are lots of different ways to describe this commitment, but it really is a commitment to a more student-centered approach, a commitment to acknowledging and honoring multiple perspectives, points of view, voices, particularly those voices that have historically been left out of our curriculum. And so we decided at the curriculum committee that we needed to update our course outlines and record to really reflect our commitment to DEIA. And lots of folks start to get a little worried whenever I say we should revise your core. They're like, oh my God, is that going to mean work for me? And my answer is yes, it is going to mean work for you.
A lot of work.
Yeah, there's a lot of work happening. You know what? It's meaningful work.
Yeah.
Right, so I make no apologies for it, because the reason why we do this is always the who or the why. This is for students and our commitment to creating courses that are engaging, that are relative, that are inspiring, that help students fulfill their academic as well as their career goals. So we never lose sight of when we are committing ourselves to doing work, because it takes work for us to truly be successful and to truly serve our students. So this is really about student success. That is what DEIA is about. And I will say that we are answering the call. And although it shouldn't take necessarily an order by the chancellor's office or an order by the government, but the calls have been raised. The calls have been raised to seriously reconsider not only the content of our curriculum, but how we disseminate that content. Right? What types of assignments do we provide? What types of reading do we provide? The cost of our courses, all of these get housed in that umbrella of DEIA. So the chancellor's office sent out a very interesting call recently. And now I got to move my Zoom folks because those folks in the room are not going to be able to see this. Here we go, sort of, you can see it. So the chancellor's office sent out a 6-point call when it came to addressing DEIA in a college-wide set of efforts. And some of those efforts that I really want to highlight for us are campus audit classroom climate and create an action plan to create inclusive classrooms and anti-racism curriculum. So that is squarely within CAC. The other call that I think is likewise really important here to point out is for us to shorten the time for the full implementation, what they're calling here a DEI, we can say DEIA, integration plan. And that is why we are not waiting for the chancellor's office to mandate it. We are not waiting for bureaucrats to get Title V all shored up and include it. We are taking action. We are putting these practices into practice, and we've done enough research. It's time for action. And that is the call that we are answering. I will also note that this is also a call that has been raised by the federal government. One of the very first executive orders of the Biden administration likewise called for a decolonization of curriculum. And we'll go over a little bit by what that means, but essentially it means not having simply a Eurocentric perspective, but acknowledging that there are multiple perspectives, global perspectives, and that we as educators should do everything within the best of our abilities to honor and acknowledge that. So that is coming to us from two different fronts. I will say right off the bat, though, that there are a lot of misconceptions about what we mean by DEIA or diversity, equity, and inclusion. Lots of folks think it's maybe something to do with social justice. Maybe it's something to do, like, you know, just to get students super engaged, like hip hop. Maybe it's just a gimmick. Maybe it's just the buzzword of the day. Maybe it's a total mystery to us. But again, I'm going to share with you all that it's really not a mystery whatsoever. And it's answering an additional call that we as a college have been committed to doing for a number of years. But in one piece that I would say has always been missing in our campus call to include more culturally responsive teaching practices within our classes, our call to decolonize our curriculum, meaning to add in multiple perspectives. One area that we have continued to need to work at is really accountability. Where do we hold ourselves accountable to this? And the course outline of record is one such place where we can really demonstrate in a very public way what our commitments are. Remember that the course outline of record is a public document. It can be seen by anyone, including our students. It is what is used for articulation. It is what is used in CTE for their accreditation boards. And so having it in the course outline of record is not a performative act. It's an active action. It's a vocal advertisement that this is what matters to us. If I had to summarize what the DEIA is, and of course, because I'm a social scientist, I had to create a bloated, very long-winded sentence. And yes, I will share the PowerPoint, so you will have it. But I would say DEIA is really about through multiple stories of the human condition, science, technology, creativity, and more, that knowledge becomes a wide spectrum of relative experiences, empowering students to identify with, relate to, and freely absorb course content while inspiring them to take ownership of the concepts and materials examined because they are encompassed within highly relatable and personal contexts. Right, that is my bloated sentence of the day, but it is very difficult to summarize in one single sentence what DEIA is all about. I will say that I've already heard through the grapevine some folks getting their feathers ruffled about revising their course, about including a DEIA perspective, suggesting that if they did that, then somehow we would be in violation of Title V.
How do they figure that?
Exactly. How do they figure that was asked in the room? And the answer being, well, there are very specific things that we have to do as is stipulated in Title V, and somehow there's just not enough room to do anything else. And that is called a deflection and a distraction, and not at all the case. I've also heard people say that it's going to somehow be in violation of the program and course approval handbook or the PAW, which comes to us from the chancellor's office. Couldn't be further from that. Or it's going to jeopardize our ability for accreditation. I laugh, but it's been told to me. Yes, Kathy.
So just Kathy, just so everybody knows, the state senate is already working on DEIA language to be infused into Title V in all curriculum work.
That's right.
So we either do it now and get ahead of the game, or we're just going to be responding later. And the PACA will have all those stipulations in it. It always takes a while to develop a new handbook and to develop this on the state level. Tara, you and Kayleen and everybody else who's worked with you have done our work for us, and Laura. I mean, this is amazing work that we should appreciate and we should all work. I have 150 courses and we're going to do it for everything, and physical education, which is not always easy. So this is something that just needs to happen.
I concur, and let's be honest, the wheels of the government, they rotate very, very slowly. And again, as part of the chancellor's office urge to shorten that timeline, we have shortened that timeline.
Right.
We're not waiting for it. I will likewise say that some people are really under the misguided impression that DEIA means you're dumbing down your course content or you're watering down your course content. Again, that is a distraction, that is a deflection. It couldn't be further from the truth. It is actually good scholarship. It is always about providing multiple points of view, multiple perspectives. It is about finding ways that we can demonstrate to students the relevancy of our disciplines. It is not at all about dumbing down, nor however, will it jeopardize, and I've heard this one a lot lately, jeopardize your course's ability to transfer. It will not do that either. I assure you that we have a very good articulation officer who will always make sure
Yeah.
that everything that is needed in the core stays in the core. Even sometimes when there are silly things that have to stay in the core, looking at you, UCs, you sometimes want some silly things in the course outline or record. We will always ensure that courses do indeed transfer. So when you hear these things, they're just excuses. They're just excuses. So don't fall for it. Because at the end of the day, what's truly crucial here is that we provide courses that students want. That we provide for students courses that are going to help further them along in their educational and career goals. That we honor actually our fields of study by making sure that we are doing them justice by having multiple perspectives and points of view. College courses are challenging and they're meant to be challenging, right? They challenge us to think outside of the box, to think differently. And sometimes we, as the educators, have to remember that as well. Okay. I will share with you that sometimes people presume that if you're going to do DEI work in your class, that just simply means I'm going to pepper in a few multicultural examples. And again, that is not what we're talking about here. What we're really talking about here, and if you want more information about this, and I advertise this in just a moment, I'm very happy to come to your department and to share with you and to offer, if you're still in the researching stage and not the action stage just yet, very happy to help you to do this. But really what DEIA is about, it is demonstrated empirically to increase student success rates. And those student success rates have been measured by both attrition from semester to semester, and they have been measured likewise in the overall performance of the course. And so why do they help students to achieve their goals? One, as adult learners, we're beyond just rote memorization, right? We all want students to critically engage in the material, but if students can't see the relevancy of this course and how it relates to them, how it relates to their career and educational journey, then they won't be motivated, right? Who would be? I wouldn't be, right? If you don't see how it relates to you, you can't be motivated. And if you're not motivated, you cannot learn. We also know too that this perspective works really well simply because it's allowing students to draw on their personal experiences, their previous knowledge. And anytime neurologically we're linking new information to old information, that's just neuroscience. It works. That is the science of learning. So it has been demonstrated then, this last bullet point here is kind of a summation of why DEIA is successful in for students to pass courses, to be able to continue on from semester to semester. Is because we are demonstrating for them how they're going to use this, how it fits within their life, that their perspective matters, that they are a player in their education. They are a player in the classroom. We are all doing it collectively. It is not a hierarchy, it is a heterarchy. And that is why DEI works as well as it does. So as you think about revising your core, and I'm about to share with you what those questions look like, we have to acknowledge that a big part of this work is the recognition that a vast majority of our student population, their perspectives, their points of view from their culture, from their sexuality, from their gender, have been left out of curriculum. So a big part of this is simply bringing to the fore an effort to include those multiple perspectives, to include reasons, and acknowledge that some of these perspectives have been purposely left out in the aiding of perpetuating racism. All of these things go hand in hand. And I'm hurrying because I'm taking up too much time, and I want to get to the show here. So these are our new questions in the course outline of record. And so I'll read them for you all, but I'll elaborate just slightly on them just to give you a heads up. And by the way, this took the curriculum committee, I don't know, like a year and a half to vet. It took many, many rounds, lots and lots of consulting with multiple stakeholders at the college for us to settle on these. So looking at the course objectives, student learning outcomes, course content, and the sample assignment provided in this proposal, how do these materials reflect and self-empower disproportionately impacted student populations in their learning goals? And as I read these, what you're going to notice is that these questions prompt you to look at all components that go into making your course outline of record, such as the sample assignment, such as the course content. And we tried to spread them out a little bit here. So the second question is, looking at the methods of evaluation provided in this proposal, what intrusive and proactive communication methods do instructors plan to employ to ensure students remain engaged? Number 3 is looking at the textbook materials and the methods of evaluation provided in this proposal. How will instructors ensure equitable and affordable access to all course materials and tools? And lastly, looking at the methods of instruction provided in this proposal, describe how they meet accessibility standards, and or how will instructors create alternatives to serve students? And you might be wondering why I have some words in yellow. And the reason why is because we are building on the previous workshopping, professional developing, I'm making all these things verbs, that we have done with Doctors Harris and Wood. We're adopting their language because we as a campus are pretty comfortable using this language. And obviously, again, this is a good DIA practice, build on previous knowledge. We're hoping that this will work for y'all. I will give a shout out further to Doctors Harris and Wood, and to acknowledge that they have generously, through the company that they are a part of called Quora, they have offered further professional development opportunities free to our college. And one course that I would highly recommend is Course Design for Racial Equity. We, as the curriculum committee, took this course almost 2 years ago now, actually. And I know that they are revising that course based on feedback, but it will be free and available to our campus starting this summer. Okay, so be on the lookout for their work. And again, because we are using lots of the same approaches and the same language, I think you will find it very easy to follow and to see automatically how it's going to apply to the work we do here. So if you go into our friend, yes, there's laughter in the room. Our friend, Curricunet, I don't know, except for Kathy, because Kathy loves Curricunet. You will see some of the tabs there that you're familiar with. Some of them have been called out specifically in those questions, but now there's a whole tab for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And when you click on that tab,
It'll take you to those 4 questions. They're text boxes. So you can provide a narrative if you're comfortable writing narratives. If writing isn't really your strong suit, I've had a lot of folks in different disciplines mention this. Folks, why are we talking in the room? People on Zoom are feeling left out. Don't talk in the room. They're just very excited about PerkyNet, folks. If you want to just have bullet points, that's fine too, right? Our job here is to help guide you through this process, which will be a long one for many of us. We are asking ourselves to completely change our mindset. It's gonna take time, right? So you will find those in PerkyNet. Now I know, right off the bat, I said the C word. I said PerkyNet. So you're all like tuned out now, like we were all on board for DIA until you told me I had to do PerkyNet. Because PerkyNet can be a little intimidating, it's a little confusing, especially for folks who have to update their courses every 5 years. It's a long time in between doing it. And then sometimes in the past, we're like, well, you can also consult the program and course approval handbook, but we don't even call it that. We just say PCAW to you all. And now you're really super confused. And again, I have to admit, and I use this joke every chance I get, and it's so bad. But when I hear the word PCAW, I think of a parrot, and but a smart parrot, right? So it's got glasses on, because that means smart. And I understand that this isn't necessarily the most helpful of guidance for folks. So we have heard your concerns. And what we have done at CHC is we have created a website for our commitment here to adding these DEIA questions to our course outlines of record. I'm going to take us to the website, I hope. All right, here it is. Make it bigger, but it doesn't want to. All right, there we go. So what you will see here is we've given you just a brief background again on what DEIA is. We've also included, given some of the objections that have been raised to DEIA, a section here on how DEIA relates to academic freedom, which we're going to talk about later in the meeting. So all of that is there for you. As well as, if you notice here, and I'm sorry to make you seasick on Zoom, up at the top, we have these different tabs for you all. If you're curious, what does disproportionately impacted mean? Well, there's a whole page here for you, defining what we mean and giving some best practices. And you can see here that they're also including some resources for folks. And if you scroll all the way down, there is a table that you can download for yourselves for a checklist. And that'll help kind of walk you through some of those best practices that you can include in your course outline of record. And so we've done that for all of those terms that are used by Harrison Wood and are used in our questions, like intrusive and proactive communication, accessibility standards, and so forth. What we have also done is, if folks get really super inspired, and this is what we're hoping eventually you all will start to do, is actually to rewrite certain areas of your core, like say your catalog description. All right, remember your catalog description is the first point of contact that students have. So we've provided some guidance on questions you can ask yourself as you're reviewing your catalog description. And then we've given examples on how to do it. And so I've tried to pick examples from a fairly broad swath of the types of courses. We have one from history, one from biology, one from the culinary arts, and one from PE. And what I've done for each of these, if I pick on biology for a moment, is you can see the catalog description without including a DEI perspective, and then some revisions. And what I really want you to notice is that it doesn't take a lot to really fundamentally make your catalog description student-centered, relevant, and accessible. It really doesn't. And we have done this for likewise for the course content. I use the same examples, but again, guiding questions. Here are examples. This is really about including multiple perspectives once we get into the course content. And then I always share with you like why these revisions are actually employing or embodying a DEI perspective. Right, and so a lot of this is, do students even know why they're taking this class? Like, is it relevant? Are we acknowledging multiple points of view, both culturally and gender and so forth? So we have done that then for all of it, including assignments, student learning outcomes, the textbook. Oh, yes. You've got some examples now, right? So that is our website that is available to you all.
When is it gonna be up there?
Well, that's coming up next steps.
Did I just look?
I know it's not there. All right, Kathy's giving me a hard time, Zoomers.
No, I'm not.
She always,
Okay, let's-
don't believe her. So our next steps is that we will be updating our website, our CAC website. This requires some collaboration with Hong, he's very busy, so it will get on our CAC website soon. We have also talked about in the committee, revising and updating our committee charge to make our commitment to DEIA front and center, right? Along with a lot of other things, because our current committee charge is very broad. It's one of those committee charges that says everything and nothing all at the same time. So those are some of our next steps. I will share with you all that if you launched a course proposal prior to January of 2023, you will not see those new DEIA questions. And so if you really want to get to work on it, we can help you to like delete that draft you're working on and move stuff over into a new draft. So you can get started on those new questions, or you can wait for your next cycle to update them then. And I will take this opportunity to share with you that on the CAC website, yes, I accept your cookies. If you're curious, we do have a tab here for deadlines, both for when we need our proposals, as well as, and this was done by Kayleen. Thank you, Kayleen.
Thank you, King.
Creating a timeline by department when you should be
Got it.
aiming to update your courses. So the first big box here is for courses that are on a 5-year cycle. And this is based primarily on the current workflow that your departments have been fairly consistently doing, but not necessarily in the last couple of years. We want to get folks on a routine cycle so that we're not behind in updating our courses. Then likewise here too, we have our CTE programs and they get updated every 2 years. So they're likewise on a cycle, and hot off the presses, I now know that we were very close to getting a schedule for non-credit as well. So hooray. So that is one of our next steps. Likewise too, CAC is committed to supporting and giving you all the support you need, as well as doing our best to aid in professional development. We've been working a lot with Josh Ramirez and Justina Fuller, chatting with Drs. Harris and Wood. But I will also remind us that CAC hosts tech reviews. So every other Monday, we have tech reviews. You can schedule meetings outside of that time as well. Eileen and I are very accommodating. We are, as well as meeting with your CAC rep. Every division has a rep. We're also planning in the works to host some workshops for both departments as well as areas in non-credit. We are also toying with the idea of creating interdisciplinary cohorts where folks can get a lot by hearing how other disciplines are approaching DEIA in their courses. So that is in the works. Likewise, too, we will host some in-service workshops. And I will ask if you all have any other questions, and I have now really talked way too much. But I get excited, so I'll stop sharing. I see you all. I'm gonna go back here. And I leave the floor open to you all. So Kim, question too, I see Art has his hand raised. Is Art able to chat at this time? And I'm seeing no from Ellen. Art, send me an email and we'll chat. We'll set up a time to chat. Kim, did you have a question?
Oh, muted.
Trying to do emojis to express enthusiasm and excitement and appreciation. Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
More, a question. Yes, thank you, Tara, for organizing all this. It's a humongous process for all departments. To simplify it, in the future, will you provide like a timeline, chronology, things to do for us? Because I mean, it's a lot. And so if there was, I don't know, some visual informing us of this is what's going on by this date, your portion should be submitted to C, etc. Will you provide something for us like that?
We do have our rough like year you
Okay.
should be working on. And so we can chat actually with Kaylee and looking at her, right? Because we've tried to space out for the School of Modern Languages,
Okay.
because you have so many
I
courses,
guess that's fine.
right? And so we do have an idea because based on what you've done in the past.
Okay.
But we can schedule a time to go over all that with you.
Thank you so much, Councilor.
That
Here.
questions. I put everybody to sleep likely.
No, I just noticed art history was 22, 23. Is that why I'm getting notifications on, like, maybe I'm tagging on to Juan's question. Could people not know their numbers up?
So this has always been the job of your division rep.
See,
Go to,
my fine arts division.
no, on CAC,
Oh,
it's
oh,
Armando.
oh,
Yeah,
I'll take this.
thank you.
okay.
It happened this year, right? The very
That's
first
all.
time we had it this year, I reached out to a bunch of people. And I know that I'm not gonna grab everybody the first year. I got probably through half of everybody who's supposed to be due this year. So I think it did really well. And then we'll just keep picking you up. I know you had stuff in the works. So we worked on some other stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of cherry picked some people too, just to kind of get it going. So I'll get to you eventually.
That's folks on Zoom, if you couldn't quite hear all that, don't panic. If you're still a little behind in your cycle, because you're in good company. But we will do our best to try to get us on a cycle so that it's not arduous. Ken,
I will look at the website and maybe you have examples of the intrusive and proactive communication. And I know what some of those are, but in thinking about, I think that's that's for the assessment part of the core, right? That where that's listed.
it's for a few areas you could practice it.
So I guess I'm just wondering if CAC's talked about kind of ideas about justice and grading in terms of opportunities to revise and that kind of thing, or is that sort of more
That's
like,
part of it, yeah, that's one of the best practices that we're.
Okay.
encouraging for folks.
thank you.
All right, folks, so you have the link to the website. I will make the PowerPoint available simply because it contains hyperlinks. And you can revel in my goofy images in a PowerPoint. So I'll make that available to folks, but you do have access to the website, so please peruse it. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Again, just massive amounts of thank yous and appreciation to the entire curriculum committee, but in particular to Kayleen and Alicia. You have no idea. So thank you for that. And in the spirit, she laughs, of curriculum, we are very, very delighted to have Laura here to talk to us about
Hello.
SLO. So take it away, Laura, and I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'll probably take the mic over here because I don't have a presentation. Don't worry, it's just me talking. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to come. I'm actually not talking about SLOs in terms of DEIA, although that is part of it and we are working towards that. And that is something we're talking about at SLOCC. But actually why I'm coming here today is kind of not as happy as DEIA work. So I became the SLO coordinator. For those of you who don't know, I became the SLO coordinator at the beginning of this, school year in fall. SLO coordinator is a 2-year term. And I had done quite a bit of SLO work prior to my time at Santa Barbara City College at Ventura College. They have a bit of a different structure there. It's a tiered system. Each division has a coordinator that works with the division. It's a little bit more intrusive because it's just such an unlike topic. So I became the CTE SLO coordinator and I worked with all the CTE programs. So when the position became open, actually Kathy hit me up and said, hey, Laura, you want to be an SLO coordinator? I was like, okay, I'm in year 4, I can do this. So currently our SLO cycle started, the current cycle that we're in started in summer of 2021 and goes through spring of 2025. When I was at Ventura, we used Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets to do assessments, record things, upload things, surveys. We did not have the financial ability to have a software. So it was all very, very, very manual. And we do have Illumin here. And so I will say me learning Illumin has been sort of my learning curve. When I came on, I actually had been sort of teased last year when accreditation was happening. The SLO coordinator at the time had to go on a medical leave. And so I was brought in at the very last minute to talk with accreditation. And so I got a taste me right of sort of where we were with SLOs as a college. And that's one of the reasons I was willing to take on being the SLO coordinator. So when I started this year, I knew that basically I started as a faculty member in fall of 19. And since I have been here, there is pretty much next to nothing happening in terms of SLOs. People are writing them. It's a part of curriculum. They're on the core. But when it comes to assessments, it's not happening. And I didn't know to what extent it wasn't happening. When I got pulled in for accreditation, I'll be very honest, I blamed it on the software because I could see that there were some issues with the software. But now that I was in my role and I knew that I kind of had this idea it wasn't happening, one of my things I addressed with VP Villa Gomez from the very beginning was, I really want to sort of change the mentality around SLOs at this college. We need to be doing them. I'm a scientist. Data gathering and data points is important. And what SLOs are how are your students doing? And are there things you could change about your course? And by capturing the data on your SLO assessments, you could have that data and make decisions and change your course to be more productive for your students, to do DEIA work, to do all kinds of things. So my beginning was really just to push in fall, to really encourage. I attended department chair meetings, I attended division meetings, I worked individually with different departments who reached out to me. And I knew people were actually working on SLOs because they were contacting me and they had questions and they were going into Illumin and things were, not what they thought, or they didn't know how to do it. And I got a lot more, movement than I thought. So at the beginning of this semester, I actually was out sick for about a week and a half. And so sitting at home, very beginning of the semester, I'd had a meeting with Illumin. And one of my first questions was, show me the report that I could look to see who is actually entering SLOs. So they did, and I showed it. So I decided to start running them as the SLO coordinator. It was pretty dismal. Basically, less than 5% of all faculty since 2018 are actually entering SLOs. It is what it is. Sorry. So that's when I brought this to the SLO committee. They were like, you probably need to go take that to Academic Senate because this is an accreditation issue. Some have gone as far as saying it's a crisis. I do believe we are in crisis. If you look at our accreditation findings, there was only one related to academia, and it was related to SLOs. This is something that could really break Santa Barbara City College and cause us some serious problems. It needs to be fixed. So there's a couple of ways, and I brought this to the committee. And there's a couple of things we can do. One, we need more representation of faculty on the SLO committee. I have 2 vacant faculty positions. I've reached out through various methods. And I thought one of the things I'd like to come and ask the senators is to go back when you report to your divisions. And please, please, please try and see if you can find any faculty who would be willing to come. We meet once a month for an hour and a half. It's the second Thursday from 2:30 to 4. And I'd really love to have some more faculty representation because this is who it primarily falls on. The next thing is that we're doing several things. There will be coming out actually later this week from myself, but also in partnership with VP Via Gomez and Elizabeth Imhoff, who's the dean on the SLO committee. I created several steps of kind of what you were asking about, like in terms of the core and what to do. This has been asked by several faculty of like, what do I need to do now? How do I do this? So I've gone and I've made several, and my voice kind of sounds like this because I did them all while I was sick. But I've made several how-to videos. I've created links. There's existing FRC documentation that I pulled in, and I created what I think is a pretty concise how-to walkthrough that will come to you later this week, so you know what you need to be doing now. And then really the big takeaway is I need faculty, department chairs, deans to get on board and start pursuing and pushing and encouraging faculty to actually enter their assessments at the end of the semester. Quite frankly, at every other school, and I've taught at 9 different institutions as an adjunct faculty as a freeway flyer, I've never ever seen, and nobody likes SLOs. I can attest to that, every institution I've ever been at. But I've never seen just a blatant, I am not going to enter SLOs. And that is what I'm being confronted with on a daily basis. I actually attended a faculty member's birthday party, and for 3.5 hours, that is all anybody ever wanted to talk to me about, was why we had to do SLOs. And I had to defend it tooth and nail because I do believe in it. I would not take on this role as the SLO coordinator if I myself was not doing it and I didn't believe in it. I actually think there is merit to it. I am a scientist who has written 2 different books on data gathering. I believe that there is data here if we write good SLOs, but we got to write good SLOs first. So that's part of what I work on, right, as the SLO coordinator, as I look at the SLOs that you write when you bring forth. So when you're doing your cores, I work very closely with Kayleen, I work with Tara, I work with curriculum committee. So I help you guys and I sort of orient you, and I'm trying to bring, I'm learning the DEIA stuff as myself, because I'm a great SLO person, but I'm not a great DEIA person. I don't have the training. So I'm getting caught up. But the other thing is just blatant, and I'm being told, looking dead in my eyes, saying, yes, I did my SLOs. And I'm like, I could go check. I have the authority. I'm the SLO coordinator. And I can't tell you how many people told me they did their SLOs in the fall. And I went and looked and there's not one piece of data there. So we got to change that. And that's what I'm here to do. So first and foremost, right, I need you to tell, and we need to get, there's training that's needed. I know that there's a lot of faculty, adjuncts. We've had a lot of new faculty. So that's why in these emails, when I send them to the department chairs, please disseminate them. Please share them with your faculty. Find out who needs help. Find out who has absolutely no idea what eLumen is, because there's a lot of faculty, I'm sure, who don't understand, don't know what it means. So we need to get that disseminated out. I'm only one person, so I need your support. The other thing, I'm going to send out the email, and then I need participation. One thing I did find out, which I think is good, and this is something, I have a meeting to work with the FRC to try and come up with a schedule and a plan to help facilitate sort of mass entry if need be, which is something that was done before years ago. But I did find out with eLumen, as long as your course and your SLOs and your assessments have not changed, you could go back and do previous semesters as long as the data was loaded. For many and most of the semesters I've gone and spot checked, the data's there. So you could go enter your assessments and go back and enter the information. So that is helpful to know that we could do that. But really, we have until spring of 2025. Our commitment to accreditation is quite minimal, to be very honest. We are only required to enter an assessment at least once for every class. But right now, we have none. The way initially, when you go back to the history of how program review has evolved, where SLO cycles were changed, there was this idea that we would only assess in 1 year, which was year 3 of the program review, which is technically next year. But I think it is extremely far-fetched to think all of a sudden, when you have hundreds of faculty who have never done this and don't know how to do it, they're just going to magically wake up August of 2023 and enter SLOs. That's not gonna happen, okay? So I need to start pushing this. We need to start a progression and we need to start getting it so that it's regularly done, so that we don't end up in crisis, so we don't have an accreditation finding, so that we are doing our job. So you have heard it from me, from my mouth to your ears. And so I just ask that we start this conversation, we take it back to our divisions take it back to department chairs, that emails that come out from myself are not deleted or dismissed or just thrown into, I'll read that later and snoozed 45 times. Okay, I know it happens. So this is a priority. And while it is an accreditation issue, which is first and foremost, this is something where if we did it correctly, we could actually have some really valuable information. Once I get past this, I will do another training about how you can use your assignments in Canvas that are being graded in Canvas to feed your eLumen assessments, to make it very streamlined. It's not perfect. It's not a fix-all, but it is a way for especially some of the classes that are set up where you have a very specific, maybe test question that truly is an assessment for one of your SLOs. You can feed that right into eLumen. So that's my next step. But my first step was to come and do this, tell you what we're doing, and go forward. Questions? Comments, concerns?
Kim has her hand raised.
Hi, Kim.
Hello, Laura. Thank you. You sent a great email to department chairs and I put it on our agenda and I will be harassing people individually. I do want to say that right now we've been happy to just do it like a couple semesters. So we feel like we have enough data because quite frankly, our SLOs aren't that great. We're rewriting them now. But I have another request, and I don't know if you have time for this, but I would really love an example of data that you got from SLOs at Ventura or wherever that you felt you learned something from. And I'm sorry if that sounds obnoxious, but I've been writing these plans and stuff on our data, and really the best part of the plans was the fact that we were just getting together and talking about teaching. So we sort of just came up with some new ideas, but our data wasn't that good. And so we are working on revising, but if you have an example, and I would say for me in the humanities, and we teach, our main classes are really they're skills-based, they're reiterative. I don't know, I sort of envy the people who just have to I don't know, learn how to do derivatives or something. I don't know what they are, but the content SLOs. So if you had a model that was also from a discipline that is, I guess, more, I don't want to, insult my field, but it's a little squishier in some ways.
Sure. No, unfortunately, I don't have access to that data anymore. I can go dig in my files and see if I kept anything, but I will tell you personally, one of the best ways I personally ever used our SLO data, and this is just one example, but in a class like Business 101, which is an introduction to business, where dozens and dozens of sections are being offered across full-time, adjunct, there's academic freedom. Yeah, you've got your core, but how it's being taught. Some are using, online materials and publisher materials. Other people are using their own textbooks or their own handwritten PDF stuff. We even had some teachers that were using OER materials, open source. So it was really a smattering, and there was no requirement, like in accounting, we're required to teach from the same textbook so that we ensure that everyone's doing that, right? Intro to business was not that way. So one of the ways, the only unifying thing was our SLOs. So we got all of the introduction to business faculty together. We had 3 semesters of assessments of the SLOs that had not changed from the, I think it was about 10 to 12 faculty. We found a time, and one of the things we realized was that like a certain area, and it was particularly 1 or 2 professors who didn't have comfort in teaching the financial aspect, just didn't do it. Plain old was not teaching a section of the class that they were supposed to teach. And the reason we found out about it is when we looked at their SLO assessment, guess what they entered? NA. So it was like, well, hold on, like, you need to tell them about accounting so that they might come take my accounting class. This is important. Another area that we did this was, we actually learned, we actually used the SLOs to actually look at enrollment levels. And what we found out was kids like cheap books. And that's not shocking. But we started actually looking and helped us. Honestly, this is one of the things that was a very abstract way. It helped us with our enrollment management because we found out, oh, I teach using McGraw-Hill's Connect where they have to buy access. And yes, there are some kids who like that, but my enrollment levels lived in the 20s. And what we didn't, when you look at a schedule and you see some class has 20 and some class has 60, a lot of people just think, oh, it's because the classroom's bigger. That wasn't it. All my classes had 20s because I required Connect and I required a textbook. The classes that had 60 in it were online and using OER materials. That was when we finally sat down to talk about SLOs. That was something. So does that give you some tangible, like, it's not just looking at like, well, everybody gets a 70% on SLO 3. Like, it's meant to start the conversation, but you can extrapolate and find out, are sections not being taught of a course or things like that, where you can have helpful information.
That helps a lot. Thank you. Yeah, I think that can happen in one of our classes too. Thank you. Yeah, excellent.
I'd really like to encourage each division to go back to their departments and at least try to get some divisional representation on the SLO committee. Laura has been a light at the end of a very dark tunnel as far as SLOs. I've been involved since the very beginning. I was in the very first group that ever worked with Mark Ferrer on SLOs. So I've been doing this a long time. Do I like them? Do I assess them? No, I hate them. And I don't do a very good job of assessing them, but I know the value of them because when we did all this in our division, originally we had really good discussions with our faculty. So, and our committee's fun and Laura does a great job and we need help. And we need everybody, every division really needs to be represented. That way we can have sort of a team approach of how we go out to our faculty and bring this more alive. And I think, you know, it's not as painful as you guys think. It's really fun. She does a great job. And I think we can make this work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add on to that. If scoring your SLOs are painful, it's because you need to rewrite them.
Yep.
Well,
Right.
not necessarily.
Well,
It's just
you gotta ask yourself, what data am I capturing from my SLOs? And I know that I don't like the SLOs in a couple of my courses because they're pretty meaningless to me. They're very generic in their writing. It's all about, do you know the terminology of the anthropology? How do I care? You know, so I know that if I want to really capture meaningful data, that's a missed opportunity. And so one question I have for you, Laura, and my apologies, Dr. Diego, if I see your hand, I'll promise to get right to you, is when we are looking at those data, is it synced up with Tableau so that we can disaggregate the data?
Not right now, and it's kind of funny because I've had a couple of people ask this kind of question. And the reason it isn't, is right now, it's just all zeros. There's nothing to say, there's no data there. I think this would be something like, I have a bi-weekly meeting with eLumen, because like I said, my learning curve in this is not with SLOs, it's with the software. So I have a bi-weekly meeting with my rep, who's amazing. And she is teaching me so much, and she's such a great resource. I will take that back to her because Tableau is such a, I mean, it's a unifying, unanimous software that's being used at every campus everywhere. So I can't see, I mean, well, it is equivalent, but I have to think there is a way to make that happen. So I'll take that back to her. That's a great question.
Thank you, because that would make the data very meaningful.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Dr. Villa Gomez. Maria?
Hi, thank you all so much. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to apologize for having my video off. I am actually at a conference as we speak, and I am about to present. I'm here as a presenter, and my audience is actually waiting for me in the room. I'm about to start in about 3 or 4 minutes, but I wanted to make sure that I, first of all, thanked Laura for really coming to you asking for help. And I want to express my support, you know, for whatever the faculty might need, the departments might need for us to increase the SLO data input and increase the level of conversations that we're having or that we can have at the departmental level. Just a quick anecdote to answer Kim's question directly regarding you know, successful or outcomes, you know, as a result of SLO data and review. When I was a faculty member, one of the things that we learned from doing SLO and assessing it was that one of our SLOs was we were setting the students up for failure. They had 3 active verbs in it, and we learned that we needed to go back and modify that one SLO and split it into 2. And so that's just a very basic example of one of the things that we learned through SLO assessment, because the students were performing really, really well with the other 2 SLOs in the core, but not that one. And so just a quick sort of basic
Maria, you're muted. You're
She
muted.
went to her presentation.
Maria, if you're still talking, we can't hear you. You accidentally muted yourself. Oh, no. It was good comments. Are you back,
Okay.
Maria?
Maybe ask her to unmute. Can you do that little thing?
Oh, now she's muted again. I think it's a tech issue.
Yeah.
That's the theme of the day. So thank you, Maria. We really appreciate your support. We really appreciate your insight too. It kind of reminds us as well of the old IBM acronym, like, you know, garbage in, garbage out, right? You have to make sure that you are writing the SLO in a way that you know what you're actually scoring and assessing. Joy.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
For accreditation,
Yes,
I wrote down in my notes, we're on a cycle 2022 to 25. Is that right?
21 to
21
25.
to 25.
Yeah, so it's 4 years.
And so the accreditation body will be looking to see if there is one semester of recorded SLOs for each class taught during that period.
Yeah, so each class, only that was the commitment we made the last time accreditation came, is that we said in our, we modified our cycle, because it used to be, that was one of our problems and why there was such a disconnect. The SLO cycle was a 3-year cycle, program review was a 5-year cycle. The 2 didn't align in any way, shape, or form. And program review and SLOs are like really connected if you're doing it right. And so that was a problem. So when the program review completely revamped, one of the things that also happened was we changed the SLO cycle so that program review and SLOs line up together. And so that was something we told them, just so you know, we're changing this. And so we changed it to line up, since the program review was going from summer of 21 to spring of 25. We made it so that SLOs did the same thing.
Yeah, I think I fell off the wagon during that change, because I used to always do them every semester.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's faculty confusion after doing them every semester, and then all of a sudden,
There was.
when do I do them?
Yes, and there is 1000%, and there's a number of reasons why. And so really what I see my job is, I don't really care whatever those reasons were, that's in the past. this is what it is, and we need to start doing it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Laura. So what I am hearing from our Senate body is that we are very happy to help support all of your hard efforts and to bring back the message to our divisions. It sounds to me like we have a few areas that we can all work on together. One is maybe clarifying the process,
Right,
right? So folks know, like, why do we score SLOs?
right.
What can we potentially gain as a department or an area, right? From, or a program,
Right.
from scoring those SLOs. The second being, well, when do we do them?
Right.
Right, and the third being, maybe some folks need help with the software.
Right.
Right, so these are all things that as senators, we can share with our division.
Yeah.
And I just want to let you know that we really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Mhm.
And to know that the like proverbial and actual door is always open for you to come and
Thank
to bring us into the process.
Right.
Because we are in contact with a lot of folks.
Yeah. And that's why it was suggested I come, and I haven't come to Senate, and I think this is a really good resource. I think a lot of your questions will be answered in this very large email, but there's a lot of videos that really walk people through to get you the, why are we doing this? When do we do it? I generically say, and the message I want delivered, it's in the videos as well, is really, and this is when I do it, when you do grades, you then do SLOs. And you just, if you do that, like, what if you just didn't do grades? Like, what would happen? It would not be acceptable, right? Like, you just didn't submit your grades. SLOs should be treated the same way. And so it should just be one of those things, like you do your grades, then you do your SLOs. That's the goal. Well, thank you for letting me come. I really appreciate
I
it.
see Ellen has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question, in response to what you just said, and thanks for all of this, information. It used to be, and I don't remember if it still is, that I teach an 8-week class. So if I was doing an early start section in the semester, I was not able to enter my SLOs until the end of the semester. And actually, I also have not always been able to enter my grades. Like I can do them in Canvas, obviously, but I can't always submit them. So then by the time I had access to enter my SLOs, I would have to, it was just more work to refresh my memory about what each student had done in terms of their coursework and how it connected to the SLOs. So I don't, could you
Yes.
let us know what the current situation with that is?
So the current situation is that is no longer an issue.
Yay, thank you.
The reason that was an issue is because where all the data that is in eLumen, like the classes, who's enrolled, everything that you're scoring is fed by Banner. So the job of what we should be doing as SLO coordinator is I do a data load. If I'm really good, I do it weekly. If I'm not so good, I do it every other week. But I think what was happening in the past is that data load wouldn't happen until week 14, 15, 16. So when your 8-week finishes and you go to enter it, there was no data load. So you're like, I can't enter my SLOs. Well, we fixed that problem. So you could go enter it as soon as, and that's what I tell people, if you've got an early, like a 4-week or a 6-week or an 8-week, like the minute the class enters or ends, go enter your SLOs, be done with it, get that one out of the way. So you can do that now.
Thanks, that was a really great.
That was a great question.
Fantastic question. Time for one more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trisha.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking forward to seeing those videos. Where did you, and I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you say where those are located? Where
there's
someone can access those videos?
So there's an email that's gonna come out. I'm just waiting
the email,
for
okay.
a little bit of feedback, just to make sure it's proofed and pretty. So it'll come out probably in the next day or so. And the idea was I was gonna send it to department chairs and deans and then ask them to disseminate. So that's the plan. So you should see it in the next 24 to 48 hours.
You should send
Yeah.
senators too.
I was looking it up
can do that.
on some of the benefits of being on Zoom. I was looking it up online, like where the SLOs, and the only page that I saw that came up, it says we're on a 3-year cycle, and then it has 2018 or something. It's a little
Old.
on the FRC side, a little out of date, maybe,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's something that is going to replace that, or
So there
if that
is
just
an
needs to be
SLO page that I have control over, that I've worked with Hong, and that is all up to date. However, the page you're talking about is owned by the FRC, and I can't update that. And I don't own it. So I've asked
Okay.
them so that that goes away, because it's conflicting and it's misleading. But I don't have full control over it. Quite frankly, I've taken everything off of that and put it on my own. I'm at a point now where we could almost just delete that page. So I've requested that, and I'm just sort of waiting.
Where is your page?
I can also include that. It's called, like, if you go to SBCC SLO, not SLO help, but SBCC SLO, that takes you to my page that shows the cycles, that shows the differences. So I'll include, that's actually a good point. I'll include the link to the true SLO page that I own through SBCC in there, because there's a lot of these resources there as well.
Because everybody's used to going to the FRC page because they did all the support.
Right.
I'm hearing that we need.
or if you just do a Zoom at SBCC SLO, which is what I think you would, you're brought to two different pages,
Yes.
and them have that kind of old information, not your, really helpful. And I really appreciate giving, the videos and walking people through the why and how it's used. That would be really useful.
Yes, you will get that.
Folks on Zoom, Laura also said that she would email senators. Right? With the
Yes,
web-
absolutely. I'll include the senators on this as well when I send
You'll
it.
get a direct email from her as well, Tricia. Ken.
I just wonder if it's worth, Laura, writing to all faculty. Do you think that's too crazy? But sometimes
Well-
it's like kind of at this crisis moment, and you can say, your chair and senators have heard about this, but it's always that choice. How many emails do you flood? Who reads them or not? So I don't have a strong opinion, and I just forward them from you. So, but it's like, I don't know, it's just interesting moments. Sometimes when you think, do we break through and just say, this is like all hands on deck moment? I don't know. I don't have an opinion, and maybe.
I don't disagree with you. We've kind of gone back and forth, and I did send in all faculty, and I got more people when I bring it up into department chair meetings of like, I didn't get that. I don't see it. I didn't see it. So I thought if I targeted a smaller group, but I don't disagree with you, Kim. I kind of was like, well, if they're just gonna forward it on it, why don't I just send it to everyone? But I kind of feel like it gets lost in the shuffle, and people pay more attention maybe from an email that comes from their dean or from their department chair than who's this Laura person, and I don't know who she is, and what is an SLO? Isn't that up north somewhere? I mean, I've gotten that question. I'm not even kidding you. From people who don't know. So like, that's kind of where my thinking was. Like I said, I've gone back, Maria and I both have gone back and forth about what's the best way to get this done. One thing we had not been doing was including the deans. And I think that needs to change. And so I've been very active about deans need to be brought into the loop, and they need to support this, because without their support, this will not be successful.
Also, it is on our evaluation form.
Yeah.
Now that this is back in the conversation, I think that will help too.
Yes.
But I agree. I think if the email is coming from your department chair, you're likely to open it.
Yeah.
If the email is coming maybe from your senator, fingers crossed, you're likely to open it.
Right.
Whereas, we do get a lot of emails every day.
Yeah.
Right? So every time there's, a workshop, we get those emails. I think this is the better strategy, but
Okay.
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, as a department chair, we might think if you send it to everybody, oh, I don't need to bother to send it. So if I send it to my department, and I can put a little special note with it,
Right.
maybe they'll pay more attention, not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed.
Encouragement.
The last thing I want to throw out there, just something that I'm doing for my division that was requested at my last division meeting, is I'm going to host a workshop the last Saturday of the semester, where I'm going to actually work with them to get all of their SLOs in for the semester. So that's definitely going above and beyond, and I'm not asking anyone to come in on their last semester after graduation to come and do SLOs. But this is one way, I would be more than happy to come if you want me to come to your department meeting and do a training or a division meeting. Or I do have, and it will also be in the email, but I have a drop-in office hour every Thursday that I leave open from 11 to 12. Most people either will come in and say, hey, I need to meet. I only have a couple minutes right now. Can we set up a Zoom time to meet so I can meet with you for an hour? And that's what we've done. So I'm available and I want to help and I want to get that word out that you're not alone in this. You are supported. And we just got to do the work. You got to get done.
Well, thank you for this commitment, Laura, and Kayleen, I think would agree. We do something very similar with CAC. We call them parties. Or jamborees. Or
I like it.
parades, or whatever you like. And it is far easier when you have multiple folks in the room. You could say, oh my gosh, the software is doing this. Oh, okay, let me immediately help you with this so you don't get frustrated and just give up on the process.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that offer, and I hope folks take you up on it. All right, thank you, Laura.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, so we are down to our last item here, and it is our discussion, and my tremendous thank you to Ellen O'Connor for being patient and waiting for us to come to you. Ellen, you probably know from chatting with Melanie that this is an ongoing project that we have here at the Academic Senate this term in trying to create an AP on academic freedom. And I know that you're AP committee. What you know, was asked to kind of look in on this topic, and I would love for you to just share with us some of your initial findings and insights.
Thanks. I'm happy to do those. Just an FYI, it's kind of hard to hear you. And with other discussion, Kathy O'Connor in the background. So just an FYI.
She told you to shut up, but that's okay. Did you hear that in the background, Ellen?
I did.
You got that, good.
You realize my friends on Zoom, but there's tremendous love for these ladies, so. Please, Ellen, can you hear me better now? I moved a microphone.
Yeah, actually, that does help quite a bit.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Take it away.
Okay, well, before I do anything, I want to just give a shout out to Ellen Carey, who did a lot of the a little bit of research for us at our last AP meeting in terms of kind of what's out there. So am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, I mean, Margarita, can she share screen? Shortened your name. Okay, you should be good.
Excellent. Now let's just see, which one was it? All right. Let's see if I can go here.
All right, great, we can see it.
Excellent. Let's just see if I can find the right one here. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you should be seeing Senate report.
No, we're seeing lab monitor.
Oh, all right. Let me stop sharing for 1 second. Let me redo it.
It's fascinating, but probably not what you meant.
Yes, it was fascinating. There you have it. Okay, there you go. Are we
Yes, we're good.
Okay. So, here's, we don't have much to report, but we can at least tell you where we are. So, one of the things that I did was I reached out to Dr. Jane Wright, who is the Director of Policy and Procedure Services for the CCLC. And I asked her specifically, was there an AP template for academic freedom? I figured, that would be a good starting place. And this is a verbatim what she sent back to me, which was the policy and procedure template for AP 4030 is optional as long as the district has provided a BP or has adopted a BP on academic freedom that complies with Title V and accreditation standards, et cetera, and that districts may certainly create an AP 4030 that provides further details to implement the related board policy. So there you have it. So then I said, so is there actually a template that exists? And the answer was no. So then AP started looking around at other community colleges to sort of say, okay, what's out there? And so this was Ellen Carey's brilliant work. And so we took a look at several that were out there. We haven't looked at them with great detail yet. But what I did want to share with you is that they sort of go from, let's see, this is, I don't know, are you guys seeing academic freedom?
We're still just seeing your Google Doc.
All right, let me see it. There we go. Okay, booyah. So this is, you should be seeing AP 4030 academic freedom.
We are, thank you.
Okay, this is from College of the Canyons. And so here's something where they've established an academic freedom committee. We're not suggesting that, but they do all kinds of stuff here, committee membership, yada, 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 the committee work, what they do reports, yada, 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 final reports, conditional requests for grievance, you know, or guidance, rather, informal advice. So they've got a whole thing here on that. But then you have the other extreme. Are we seeing this one?
Yes.
Here's the other extreme. This is, yes, this is Taft. It is the procedure of the West Current Community College District to adhere to the board policy regarding academic freedom. So our suggestion is that there probably be something in between those two that might guide us on there. So if I come back to my report to you. So there are things that we can look at here, but we had a discussion the last time about, you know, what really needs to be in the AP and how would the AP really differ from the BP? And so in looking at some of these things, and by the way, I did just for fun do a chat GPT and asked it to write an administrative policy on academic freedom for a college or university. It wasn't bad. So,
well, feel free to share it.
well, it actually was more kind of procedural anyway. So it was kind of interesting. So I'll bring that to the committee and we can play with it. But I do think what's important is that in the AP, there needs to be some statement of confirmation on the definition, how we are defining academic freedom, or if we're going to be using the AAUP definition, et cetera. But basically pulling out some of the things in our BP that define academic freedom. Melanie took us to the Golden West AP. Well, actually, it's not an AP. It's really more of it's kind of a website that sort of morphs into an AP. But they have some really good examples of, you know, what is academic freedom? So you've got this definition and it's a little bit more tangible. What is academic freedom in terms of it is this, but it's not that, as some examples. And then one of the things we talked about quite a bit was, you know, I think the purpose of an AP in many ways is not only to, you know, sort of, you know, confirm the definition and how it's interpreted, but also what do you do in the case where there is a grievance, right? Where there is a question about whether or not a faculty member has in some way violated the standards of academic freedom. And so we currently already have AP, I think it's 7216.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is, you know, our grievance policy. And so it seems to me that we probably need to consider tying that into our BP talks about, it refers the reader to our AP on discrimination. But you know, so I'm thinking, you know, that may be something that we want to put in this is, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to determine if somebody maybe has moved astray of academic freedom, and then what are the potential consequences of that? So that's kind of what we've been talking about. So at this point, I'm open to any feedback, comments, directions. Anything you want to tell us, we're all ears.
Thank you, Ellen. Before I open up the floor to questions, I'll just ask if Ellen Carey has any additional comments to make too.
Sure. These examples are not an exhaustive list by any means. Like sometimes on the AP committee, we've looked at literally every other California community college's APs to find out what, how they handle a particular thing. And we didn't do it that systematically for this. This was just literally my Googling during a meeting. So I just want to make that clear that it's some examples, there may be other great examples out there. But I thought it was interesting that there was sort of a couple extremes. From what I remember, there were also, we didn't really search union contracts, but it may be that some of these colleges or some other California community colleges have, and I think this is true of Golden West, have academic freedom written into their contracts as well. And we haven't looked into that on the AP committee. So those are my comments as a member of the AP committee. I also just wanted to make a comment in my role as one of the ESD senators. So one thing I think that I'm not sure any of these examples do necessarily, I'd have to look at them again to refresh my memory, but I think I want to make sure that how academic freedom connects to equity isn't lost in this, in whatever we do. And so if that isn't showing up well in the examples we find, I don't want to just end up using someone else's template and overlooking that was part of the goal of this project. And I actually have an example from ESD that we had a division meeting, our monthly division meeting yesterday, and Lori Vasquez made a really good point. We were really struggling, I think is fair to say, with trying to wrap our arms around how academic freedom relates to our various roles as so-called non-instructional faculty, although some of us are also instructional faculty. But how for an academic counselor, for example, academic freedom applies in those student interactions. But Lori had some really good examples of how a misunderstanding, I would say it's a misunderstanding of academic freedom, can adversely affect students who may already be marginalized. If faculty invoke academic freedom as a reason for not wanting to provide accommodations to a student with a disability, for example. And so I'm not, I'm not sure we need to get into detail about where to go with that in this discussion, but I think that's just a really good example of how it can be misused and work against equity and be exercised in a very not student-centered way. So I think that's something that we need to be thinking about when we draft our own AP or move forward in general.
Yeah, and I just would like
Both Ellens. Ellen O'Connor.
just to echo Ellen, and I really appreciate her comments on that. And many of the APs that we did look at are, they're late teens, early teens,
When they were written.
in quite some time. So, and I agree. I mean, this is something that we want to make sure that there's a good intersection between these two.
Yeah, I completely concur with both Ellens on some of our asks for this AP. I think it does help us to understand why we don't have an existing AP, since it isn't required if you have a BP. So that was interesting to discover. And we may or may not be able to draw too much inspiration from other colleges as far as a template goes. But some of the areas that have come up a lot that I'll just summarize before we get to Kim here
in terms of what we want our AP to entail, is I absolutely concur that the AP needs to address and contain equity, right? There's some things that academic freedom does not protect people against, and not providing accommodations, because it's your academic freedom. No, that's not what academic freedom is. So in some of our defining of what we mean by academic freedom, we need to clarify that point. So that's a definition aspect that we need to consider in our AP. And then I think too, in some of our APs, what I'm hearing a lot from senators are certain protections that we want outlined in the AP. And I would say most fundamentally for myself, and is the most worrisome, is for our part-time or adjunct faculty. In some ways, the tenure process protects a lot of us, and that's when, Ellen mentioned unions, and I think that's true because it's part of the contract for tenure. But that doesn't apply to our, now the majority of our instructors. And so this is another reason why we really need to draft this AP, particularly now. So that's what I'm hearing so far. And now, Kim, please. Kim, you're muted.
I think you're gonna remember lowering the hand and unmute. That's a lot. Both Alan's great point of the, how it could be abused, because we were talking about sort of the grievance. I'm like, well, what do we, so that really helped me wrap my head around that. So, and then I think we've been talking about the contract role at some point, like we've been thinking about working with the FA on it too. So I don't know if you want to add that. It's sort of what you were saying, Tara, recognizing that the tenure process protects full-time faculty, but I wonder if at some point we have to think about how we're connecting with the contract.
Thank you, Kim. Ellen, you want to respond?
Well, just that this discussion was had at AP, which was, all the committee members were very much around, that it seems that often the burden is carried by more part-time faculty who are much more vulnerable in some of these situations. And, how does that, how do you provide protection for these persons, particularly against, something that is, they've alleged to do something. And, of course, oftentimes there are some debates as to whether or not something violates academic freedom or whether it doesn't. And so, so in thinking about some of those things, I was thinking about, okay, what do we already have in place for other issues that come up around one faculty grieves another, student grieves the faculty, some of those things. And there is the grievance policy that we already have that essentially lays out, and that may need to be updated as well, because it doesn't specifically call out academic freedom. I mean, there's kind of a general category, like just you have a beef with somebody about something. But I do think that, those are the kinds of things that we might want to tighten that up, or we may want to explicitly call out issues of academic freedom within the grievance policy, because I think that's where, at least in our existing, where there may be some opportunities for protection. So just a thought. But again, Ellen's point is also a good one that, because we have kind of the thin contract, many of these workplace issues are not covered in contract, and the, or the contract refers to the grievance policy.
Right. Thank you, Ellen, for that. Thoughts, senators?
I
Joy.
have a partially informed thought. When I was reading some other institutions' academic policy or academic freedom policies, and reading some of the responses from my division, I noticed, and it's partly from our contemporary politics, that the word discomfort comes up a lot, student discomfort. And I don't think that was really a part of academic freedom that I used to think about. So I wonder what how we want to address that kind of newish issue. I don't have the answer on that, but it just seems so nebulous to bring up something that someone has discomfort over when it really is part of the consideration in the discipline.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think it's in part because while academic freedom isn't political, it addresses topics that
Mhm.
are political.
Have been made.
And so perhaps part of what we're seeing is this proliferation of constant bombardment through social media and various news outlets that sensationalize a lot of these topics too. And in that case, what we're really gonna have to grapple with in many respects is creating a space where we have supportive, open and honest dialogue that is in the spirit of academic freedom, is in the spirit within knowledge, is in the spirit of student learning. And it is a challenge, and maybe these are things that we have to call out in this AP. I always tell students, you don't have to agree with the perspective from anthropology. It's my job to present it to you and your job to decide where it lands. Right, so I think these are all issues that are gonna come up again and again. I think I'm also hearing that folks are not certain on what the difference is between academic freedom and free speech. They are not the same thing,
Right.
but they're connected.
Mhm.
And that is likewise something maybe in our definition, we need to fully articulate. And then lastly, before I get to Anna here, just to let you all know, as the curriculum chair, I get emails all the time from folks from the community making complaints. I get emails from board members asking if they can revise our curriculum. And I'm like, no, you cannot revise our curriculum. So I think this AP is timely, because maybe the BP isn't always being read. Anna, please.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just agree with the point about drawing the distinction between academic freedom and freedom of speech, because I do think that's super critical. And then I also just wanted to chime in about the grievance policy. And if we are going, I mean, either way, I do think that an update of that policy is necessary. Currently, the way that it is set up, it really puts a huge burden on anyone who would want to file a grievance. Starting with, talk to the person who has impacted you in some way, which in my opinion is not really appropriate. If it's gotten to the level of grievance, right? So I definitely think that an update to that policy is necessary, and especially if we're going to use it as a place to nest any of the academic freedom stuff under.
Yeah, thank you, and I completely agree. I mean, especially when we're talking about, for students, placing the onus on them to understand this highly complex bureaucratic process. That's not acceptable. We can't do that. So thank you for that. Well, both Ellens, when is the next time the AD committee meets?
We meet this Thursday, 2:30.
Okay. Any chance I can drop in and join you?
You are always welcome. We welcome all guests.
Thank you, because what I'm going to propose to us, because we are at a time here for this Senate meeting, but what I would like to just end with is some next steps for us. We've been talking about this for a while. So I would love to attend your next meeting and try to start maybe drafting together some definitions for us, drafting together what aspects we really want included in the AP, so that then at our next Senate meeting, which is March 8th, all right, thank you for Rita. March 8th, we could put something before senators and really start to make this concrete for ourselves, put it in writing, start to really make some progress on this. Does that sound reasonable to folks in the room and on Zoom? Thumbs up, head nods, thank you. I always tell my students, oh, thumbs down from Art, sorry, Art. I always tell my students I need encouragement too. All right, folks, we are at the hour. So in fact, a little bit over. So I appreciate you all sticking around.
And I look forward to our next meeting, which will be on the 8th, in person, right here in the BC 214. So thank you all. Have a good rest of your week. I'll call this meeting adjourned. Good job, Tony.
You ran a good meeting.
Thank you, Tara.